What is going on, SoFi fans? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So today I want to talk about what happened in the broader market, how there was many different bombshells that was all dropped today, and unfortunately SoFi was one of the casualties. I'm going to talk about everything that you need to know, and also, is SoFi actually safe at the end of the day? Before I get into any of that though, making sure you guys hit that thumbs up and subscribe, greatly appreciate that. With that, let's get right to it. So looking at this intraday chart, unfortunately, little hope that happened today. A little bit more of optimism during power hour, but unfortunately that did diminish near the last 10 minutes of the trading day. After hours, so far is pretty flat. And I want to start off by talking about the different bombshells that was dropped. One of which came from the economic data, aka retail sales came out today. So previously was at 0.8, the forecast was at 0.1%. So clearly even going into this day, the expectation was very, very low. But despite that though, it still did come in even lower. So came in at 0%. So in reality though, that definitely shows that inflation is really starting to hit consumers. And I've been a very big advocate over the last little bit. But in general though, I've been a very big fan of consumers and how they've been out there spending the money, making their jobs and things like that. Because definitely when there was a lot of recession talks, they were the only data out there that was still very strong and very positive, holding up the economy. But unfortunately with this retail sales numbers coming out today, it shows the first crack in the system. So ultimately shows that hypothetically inflation is finally starting to hit the consumers. So this is a very big blow to aka a lot of banks. So in theory though, this is where unfortunately I don't really agree with, is that SoFi is very beneficial and different from the traditional banks. So a lot of the traditional banks did take a little bit more of a nosedive today because of this data. Unfortunately, they don't really signify, and investors don't really signify the difference between traditional banks and SoFi, because in SoFi's case, even looking at technically their latest earnings, we have a FICO score average of 748, and on average they earn 160,000 or more. So clearly, even if there is a little bit more of a downtrend or a possible recession that does occur, SoFi and its customers are generally a little bit less at risk versus the traditional banks, because traditional banks, they rely on mass amounts of quantity of customers, not necessarily quality. So there is a little bit more of a difference, but unfortunately people can't really tell, and this is why unfortunately SoFi went down a little bit more than everything outside of that. So in reality, let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. But outside of that though, there was also this. So the Feds did have their meeting minutes that did come out, and this was from July the 27th meeting. There is some interesting things that they did bring up in here. So they do claim that they want to still combat inflation, get it down to the 2%. They're not going to stop until they get to around the 2% range. But coincidentally, they also want to keep the interest rate roughly between the 2.25% and 2.5%. So keep in mind, we are already at the 2.5%. So in general, what is the Fed's going to do? And unfortunately, it goes to show they're either going to let inflation run rampant, which aka will hurt a lot more consumers, the broader market, or they potentially go over what they were assuming they were going to be as the cap and continue to raise rates. So they're going to be stuck between a rock and a rock in reality. But in the end though, I do feel that they will be forced to raise the rates most likely until get to around the 3.5% range, if not more. That's my own 2 cents. Keep in mind though, if that does happen, SoFi is still going to benefit from that, because they do make a significant amount of money from that variation of what they actually offer customers based on their APY versus what they actually charge. So that works out to be pure profit at the end of the day. So this is some things that's causing a little bit more spooking in the market. And unfortunately, regardless of even if SoFi is in the right sector to flourish and benefit from a higher interest rate environment, the market seems to really just want to take SoFi down. So even more so looking on the technicals, I'm going to break that down as well. But when it comes to it though, I want to go over some short information because I like to use them as well as a good benchmark. Despite the red day, very red day for SoFi, shorts actually did close out 3.03 million shares today. So that is pretty significant. So this is why I like to look at the data behind the scenes and what that actually is telling us, because cost to borrow as of right now is 2.15%. So that's also gone down. Typically, short interest and cost to borrow are a little bit more inverse. So when cost to borrow ideally goes down, for instance, it becomes a little bit easier for shorts to maintain their their position. So they, in theory, should increase it. So it's very interesting to see both going down at the same time, which right now 15.34% is a short interest, which in reality, keep in mind, almost a month and a half ago, we were at 24, almost 25%. So we've gone down a huge amount. So just take that into consideration at the end of the day. But when it comes to it though, big money is still buying behind the scenes. So this is all the dark pool transactions that did happen today. So looking at all of this money being purchased behind the scenes on SoFi. So this is still pretty significant. Some things that you cannot ignore. A lot of other growth stocks didn't have the same amount of institutional purchasing today. So clearly this is a little bit more of an abnormal fact. So in the end though, given all the bombshells that was dropped today, a lot of people want to know, is SoFi actually safe? So keeping in mind, like I mentioned about the FICO score and the high quality of customers that SoFi does have, I personally feel that we went down a little bit more unjustifiably. And you can even tell that based on the huge amount of institutional purchasing. So typically big money can tell when there's BS in the water. So the fact that we've gone down as much as we did, and also shorts were closing out their positions as much as they were, definitely goes to show that SoFi is a huge buying opportunity. So you better take advantage of all these cheap prices. Keep in mind though, I'm not a financial advisor, so do your own due diligence at the end of the day. This is only for entertainment purposes, and in the end, I hope you were entertained by all this. So in the end though, even if the feds do hypothetically raise the rates, then yes, technically SoFi is going to benefit significantly. Yeah, again, it goes back down to the point about the retail sales. That is a little bit more crack in the system. It shows the first sign of weakness in the broader market. So now a lot of people are starting to talk on recession and things like that. So again, maybe SoFi is going to go down a little bit more if a recession is to happen. Obviously, the broader market will go down. So it's one of those things that you just need to have a long-term time horizon. And this article that recently came out speaks volumes, and I think is a very good indication of what a lot of investors should have. Where will SoFi stock be in 5 years? So ultimately, they talk on ideally by 2024. And I always say in a lot of videos, obviously I'm not going through this whole article per se, but still it goes on to say by 2024, it is going to get to a very sweet price point of what they say. They don't say that it's going to be fully matured in their own opinion, and that might come later in the decade, but by 2024 is going to get to a huge appreciation based on the price, based on the beta and all that. So in the end though, in a lot of videos, I always say 2024 is that price point and time frame that you want to aim for when you are investing in SoFi, because that is when you are going to make a lot of money. Even on all their acquisitions that they did have, they all say that by 2024, 2025, that is when they're actually going to be turning profits. So why would you invest in the short term when by 2024, 2025, you are going to make substantially so much more? So that's my own 2 cents on all that. And keep in mind though, there is only a downtrend on SoFi and other stocks only because people are assuming that a recession is going to happen. Imagine if no recession actually does occur. Again, this is why you do your own due diligence, and today was a significant amount of panic selling going on. And looking at the actual charts, you can tell that there was a huge amount of panic selling based on retail presence just by looking at the momentum indicator. So momentum indicator down significantly. Stochastic, you can see a starting deviation between the red and the black line, showing a little bit more of a bear sentiment wanting to form. On the actual chart, we did transition from the higher to lower percent of the Bollinger Band, but we did get met with that 100-day moving average, so we did bounce off of that. But keep in mind, this 50-day moving average, that is the pivot point that you really need to watch for. If we do break below that, then most likely we might be trending down to the high fives. On the contrary though, if we stay above it, then hypothetically the bull run in reality based on the technicals is still for the most part alive and well. So that's my own 2 cents on all of that. So I personally feel SoFi is fairly safe, one of the better safe plays among the banking sector, based on the huge amount of quality customers that they do have. My own 2 cents on all of that. Let me know your thoughts on all of that in the comments below, or if you disagree with any comments I did say, let me know as well in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I greatly appreciate that. But with all that, let's all make a lot of money on SoFi.